Growing their product offerings for mobile creators, Sennheiser is out with a new lineup including the XS Lav Mobile and MKE 400 compact shotgun microphone. Great for VOs and also capturing on-camera audio, there are some nice options that go up against some stiff competition from the likes of Rode. Two of those products from that lineup that we're checking out are the MKE 400 and also the XS Lav Mobile. So let's dive in and check them out. Thanks for watching 9 to 5 Toys. Be sure to like, subscribe, and enable notifications with the bell icon so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Hey everyone, Jordan here with 9 to 5 Toys, and while we do have two of the products here, there are more options in this Sennheiser lineup. For on-camera audio, there are two different options with the MKE 200 and the MKE 400, and a few features do set them apart. The 400 is much larger and requires two AAA batteries, which are included, while the MKE 200 doesn't require any extra power. And this gives the MKE 400 more gain options, as well as a headphone output for direct monitoring of audio. If you want the super simple plug-and-play option, then the $100 MKE 200 is definitely worth a look. It features a similar design as the 400 with a front mount cable, enclosed shock mount, and included cables, but for the full featured experience, the MKE 400 has a ton to offer for the $200 price point. And on the lavalier side, there are two different options, and that is the cable connector here. So we have the mobile version, which has the tip ring sleeve TRRS connector, or you can also get a USB-C connector if that works better for your setup. And there are also mobile kits available for pretty much every single one of these products as well, so lots of different options depending on how you want to use them. All right, and first off, what we're going to do is take a look at the MKE 400. Included in the box with the mic are the two required AAA batteries, an extra furry windshield, a simple carrying pouch, a tip ring sleeve to tip ring sleeve cable, and a tip ring sleeve to tip ring sleeve cable for various devices. And I have to say right out of the box, I really dig the look of the Sennheiser MKE 400. Now I know it might seem a little silly to say that it's a good looking microphone, but compared to some other ones which are a little bit floppier on the exterior because of their shock mounts, and also a little bit softer because they do have like windscreens, the MKE 400 gives a very solid, robust build quality vibe to it. And while it doesn't have that, visible shock mount that a lot of microphones do, there is one built into this hard housing. So, and we'll test a little bit later to see how it compares to something like the Rode VideoMic Pro. Another design feature that I really love about the MKE 400 is the removable cable. So I have it connected to my Sony a7S II here, and it's a front mount cable. So this keeps the cable out of the back, which has been an issue with some other microphones that I use, mainly like the Joby Wavo microphone, which has a rear mount plug. It feels like that always gets in the way of the screen or some of the buttons back here. But this front mount cable is really great. And the fact that it is removable means that you can supply your own cable and use something else. So on the Rode VideoMic Pro, that is a built-in cable, you can't remove it. But on here, you can. So one thing that this lets me do is that if I want to use this in my studio setup and actually have the microphone closer as like a shotgun microphone, just out of frame, I can do that and still run my own longer cable to connect back to the camera. And of course, you could get an extender and run that on the VideoMic Pro if you wanted to, but I do think having the removable cable on the MKE 400 is just a really handy feature. And taking a look at the overall design here, you can see we have this large perforated capsule on top that does have its own built-in windscreen, and there is a shock mount for the microphone inside of that. Looking at the left side of the mic, we have the 3 adjustable settings for gain. We have a high pass filter, so if you want to knock out some of those low ends, which can help with knocking out the sound of an air conditioner or knocking out some wind noise, that can help. And then we have the power button or power light indicator. And looking at the right side of the microphone, we have headphone out as well as volume controls for adjusting that output. And on the back where it says Sennheiser MKE 400 is the battery cover, so that's where you can remove and replace the batteries. And the AAA batteries in here should last for about 100 hours, which is great. And one other feature that I really love about the MKE 400 is that it seems to have an auto power on-off feature. So as you can see, I have the camera turned off right now. The microphone is off as well. The green light is not on. But when I just turn the camera on, all I'm going to do is flip it to on. That green light comes on. So it senses through the cable that the power's been turned on, and it will automatically power on the microphone. And likewise, when I turn the camera off, switch it to off here, and then the light should turn off in just a little bit. There you go, and it turned off. So for me, this is actually really helpful because there have been many times where I've left my Rode VideoMic Pro on when I didn't mean to and drained the battery unnecessarily. That mic still has some great battery life as well, so it's still usually usable the next day, but as far as like the overall lifespan of the microphone, I just had to change more batteries more frequently because I would forget to turn it off. And we briefly mentioned it in the intro, but there is also a kit available for this microphone. The microphone itself runs $200, and then if you want the mobile kit as well, which gives you a clamp for a mobile phone, as well as a Manfrotto mini tripod, then you can get that for an extra $30. So that's just a very easy way to make this a little bit more usable in different recording situations. All right, so moving on to how does it sound? Well, in my time testing it, I have been very impressed with the sound coming out of the MKE 400. Recording in both my studio here and recording outside, compared to a few different mics that I've tested, I've found it to sound really good and I've been really impressed. So the first thing that I want to show is here in my studio, I'm actually going to compare it to the Razer Seiren Emote. So this is a situation I've been looking for something that I could, mount a little bit out of the way, out of the camera, and not have this large condenser microphone just sitting right in front of me while I am talking. So I wanted to put this to the test and see how it sounded against this microphone. So this is obviously one of my recording setups. Sometimes I face this way, sometimes I face towards my desk, and I usually use the Razer Seiren Emote, which I am recording with right now, but I'm also recording with the MKE 400, which you can probably see the tip of it just right here. So typically, if I was shooting, obviously I would raise that up or crop in a little bit just to get that out of frame, but you can kind of see where that is. It's probably 18 inches from my mouth or so. And so this is another example, another use case for what you could use the MKE 400 for. So if you're a vlogger and you do a lot of work outside, but then you also do some studio work as well, I mean, this is a great sounding microphone if you are doing some sort of, product reviews or unboxings or just talking to camera stuff. And so I definitely think it competes pretty well with something like the Razer Seiren Emote, which is what I've been using quite a bit. And the reason I've been using the Razer so much is because it has a super cardioid polar pattern. So it's picking up, a lot more directional, which is very similar to the MKE 400. And after watching those back, I mean, I really enjoy the sound coming out of here. It definitely contends with the Razer Seiren Emote, and I also think that it did really well with my echoey room here. I mean, I really don't have any sound treatment in here, which is, I know it's like a YouTuber fail, like I should be putting up like all the, little panels everywhere to soak everything up. But typically the Razer Seiren Emote does pretty well because it has a super cardioid pattern, and it's the same story with the MKE 400 as well. While it's not a dedicated studio shotgun mic, there are lots of great options from Sennheiser and Rode for those. I was actually really impressed with how well it worked. So I might be trying this out in some of my upcoming video reviews. All right, so now moving outside against the VideoMic Pro, I was also really impressed with the MKE 400 and how it handled background noise. Once again, I think thanks to that super cardioid pattern, it's much more directional about what's in front of the camera. And so here we'll play a few different examples. All right, so here we are outside testing the Sennheiser MKE 400. I'm probably about 3.5 feet away. There are a little bit of birds chirping in the background, a little bit of road noise. There's a light breeze. I do not have the windscreen on right now, so hopefully we can get a good idea of what it sounds like just in its stock form. And then next up, I'll pop the windscreen on there so we can see how that sounds, and then we'll try the Rode VideoMic Pro to compare it against the Sennheiser. And so here I'll just let it run for a little bit so we can get kind of how some of that background noise sounds. All right, and now let's pop on the windscreen. All right, now we have the windscreen on the Sennheiser MKE 400. I'm about the same distance away. Still a little bit of breeze, some birds chirping, a train in the background, a little bit of traffic. So it'll be interesting to see how it picks up all of that. Because this is supposed to be a super cardioid, so very focused on what's in front of the camera and kind of blocking out what's behind and beside the camera. So hopefully this gives a good idea of what it sounds like with the windscreen installed. All right, and so now we have the Rode VideoMic Pro installed. You might be able to hear a little bit of train in the background, so a bit louder than what it was with the Sennheiser. But I want to get a good idea for what the same distance sounds like with the same background noise. Birds chirping, obviously the Rode has the built-in windscreen. You usually don't take that off, I don't think. So we'll see how it sounds in comparison to the Sennheiser MKE 400. And here I'll just let it sit so we can get just a little bit of the environment, a little bit of the background. All right, and hopefully that gives us a good comparison. So after listening to that back there, I mean, I feel like road noise and bird chirps were a little bit less noticeable on the MKE 400. It seemed like there's a little bit more just kind of a noise floor with the Rode VideoMic Pro. So once again, really impressed with how this sounds. I also think that the Sennheiser straight out of the camera, obviously I haven't put any EQ or tweaked any of the sound at all. Straight out of the camera, I think that the Sennheiser sounded a little bit better as well. It seemed to have a little more presence, a little more clarity, whereas the sound out of the Rode VideoMic Pro was a little bit flatter. So obviously it's going to be personal preference, and depending on your process, that might be a good or bad thing. But for me personally, I think I prefer the sound coming out of the MK400 over the VideoMic Pro. And the last comparison that I wanted to do with the MK400 was against the VideoMic Pro and the shock mount. So obviously on the VideoMic Pro, it's a pretty noticeable shock mount on here. It's external, you can kind of see it. It kind of flops around a little bit like when you move the camera. So I wanted to see how that stacks up against the internal shock mount of the MKE 400. So I just put them both on a tripod and just kind of tapped around the camera, move the tripod, and try to get a little bit of background noise that you would maybe experience being transferred through the mount. And so here we'll check out those examples. Basically what I'm going to do to test it is just kind of like tap around the camera and kind of jiggle my tripod a little bit to see what kind of noises come through. So here we're just going to kind of tap around it, jiggling the cable a little bit, just tapping around the camera, maybe make some adjustments. See if that comes through at all. I'm going to jiggle the tripod. Kind of tap on the tripod. Okay, and then I'm going to switch over and do the same thing with the Rode VideoMic Pro. All right, so now we have the Rode VideoMic Pro set up on the Sony a7S III. I'm going to do the same kind of thing. Just tap around the camera body, shake the tripod, play with the cable, kind of see what kind of noise comes through. All right, hopefully that gives you a good idea of the difference between the two. I do think that the VideoMic Pro did a better job of removing some of those like super low impact noises than the MKE 400, but they both did still pick up, some noise when I was tapping around the camera. So it's not like the VideoMic Pro eliminates everything and tons of stuff is showing up on the MKE 400. And I will say, in my experience using this in a run and gun situation, I really didn't notice, any extra noise when I was using the MKE 400 in normal use. All right, and now I quickly want to talk about the XS Lav as well. And obviously there aren't nearly as many features to this, but there are a few things that set it apart from some stiff competition like the Rode SmartLav, which is what I've been using for a while whenever I need a lavalier microphone. And so that's what I tested it up against. Depending on your device, the $60 USB-C connection might be the perfect fit, but for a more traditional connection, the XS Lav can also sport a tip ring sleeve connector that still connects to smart devices, and that's just $50. So the version that we have here is that tip ring sleeve version. On the design side, a couple of things set this apart from the SmartLav from Rode. Mainly, once we actually take the windscreen off, you can see that the size of the actual microphone is much larger on the Sennheiser. So that might be a good or a bad thing depending on how you're using them. In my experience, I don't really mind the larger size of the Sennheiser. And one thing that I really like about the Sennheiser is that it does have a much longer cable. So the Sennheiser is about 80 inches, while the Rode SmartLav is about 47 inches. So obviously you can still get extenders if you need more than that, or if you need more than what the Rode SmartLav can offer. But for an all-in-one option, I do prefer the longer cable on the XS Lav because it does give a little bit more freedom where you can move around and play with your placement. For my testing, I use an adapter to take this down to a tip ring sleeve and then connect it into my a7S III and recorded some audio outside. All right, and so here we have the Sennheiser XS Lav clipped onto my shirt. We have that included windscreen installed on there. There is a light breeze. It's nothing too crazy out here. We also do have some birds in the background and a little bit of traffic in the background. So hopefully this gives you a good idea of what it sounds like in those kinds of conditions. And here we'll just let it sit so you can get a little bit of background noise. And then next we'll swap over to the Rode SmartLav to compare it to the Sennheiser. All right, so now let's try how the Rode SmartLav sounds. So there's a little bit of breeze. We have the built-in windscreen here. Obviously you can get third-party windscreens that are a little bit more substantial if you feel like you need a little bit more. But hopefully this is giving you a good idea of what it sounds like. There's a little bit of traffic noise in the background, some birds chirping, a little bit of breeze, but nothing too crazy. So hopefully you got a good idea of what the differences sounded like between the Sennheiser and the Rode in those clips. To me, it sounded like there was a little bit more clarity once again in the vocal range with the Sennheiser than there was with the Rode. And once again, that might be a good or bad thing depending on you and your workflow. But just as far as a run and gun, straight out of the box, no extra tweaks made, I think that I prefer the sound from the Sennheiser XS Lav. All right, so wrapping up here, I've been using Rode products for quite a long time. The VideoMic Pro has been a mainstay on my camera, and the SmartLavs have been ever present in a lot of videos that I've shot as well. But after using these Sennheiser products, I've been really impressed with what they have to offer, especially for the price points. With the MKE 400, this is going to be my new go-to when I am run and gun. And then I also think I'm going to give it a go here in my studio as well. So you'll have to let me know what you think about that in future videos. While mounted to my A7S III, the MKE 400 has many features that make it feel like an upgrade over previous on-camera microphones that I've tested. The cable placement stays out of the way better than rear-mounted cables. The removable cable means that I can use my own cable and get more creative with mic placement in situations when I am recording in my studio. And the auto on-off is a huge convenience that saves battery life for me. And when it comes down to it, I like the sound of the MKE 400 and its super cardioid pattern. And with the lavalier, I mean, there are some situations where you might want a smaller lav, but just as far as overall sound quality and the longer cable, I do think that I prefer using the Sennheiser as well. So some great products, some great features from Sennheiser here for the mobile creator. And that'll do it for our review of the MKE 400 and the XS Lav Mobile. Let us know what you think about them down in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. This is Jordan with 9to5 Toys.